He said, sir, you're a little low on that number. I said, really? I was using $10 trillion. It's now $11.7 trillion in worth. 11, you know what that is? And China was catching us rapidly before I became president, and right now we are going so fast. We are the fastest developing country in the world. Can you believe it? Fastest in the world. And that's why I say we have a midterm coming up, an election. Historically, whoever's president, I don't know why this works, but whoever's, I guess people get complacent. You know, hey, we just won the presidency. Now 2 years later we have an election, so they're complacent. And then we always win in the next one, which is, as you know, the presidential election. We always. So far I'm dreaming of those candidates. I see those candidates before my eyes. Every night before I go to sleep. Sometimes while I'm sleeping, I love them so much. Cory Booker, Pocahontas. I've got more Indian blood in me than Pocahontas, and I have none. I mean, sadly, I have none, but I have more than she. They said to her, why do you say you're of Indian heritage? Well, my mother told me I have high cheekbones. That's the answer. Do you have any documentation? No, we don't. Oh, I see. You have high cheekbones. Well, I have high cheekbones too. Hey, maybe I'm an Indian and I'm going to do very well. But think of it. This is her reason. The whole thing's been a fraud, but that's okay. You know what? I want to be careful. I'm taking out so many of these people. I'm hitting them so hard that they're disappearing. And I don't want to do that. Because I may get somebody that's actually good to run against me. That would not be good. I'll take out all the easy ones, and maybe I'll get stuck with somebody that's actually good, but I don't see any on that side. Well, Sleepy Joe Biden, who ran for president 2 or 3 times, you know, they say only twice. I think I remember a third time in there. But he had 1% with an arrow pointing left. That means 1% or less. And then Obama took him off the trash heap. Well, he's one of the people. Remember, he challenged me to a fight? I'd like to take him behind the barn. I'd love that. That wouldn't last long. That would not last long. That wouldn't last long. Go like this. He's down, and he'll never get up. He will never get up. Now, I gotta leave their candidates alone. Somebody actually said you're hitting these candidates really hard. Here's a non-candidate, you know. Da Nang Dick. He's a Da Nang Dick. That's Blumenthal. He talked about when I was in Da Nang province in Vietnam. And I was fighting up the hill, and men are going left and right of me. They're dying. They're being struck by bullets. But I went back to their rescue. I went back and I got them. And then I made a second attempt. And bullets are going left and right and over my shoulders, and they're hitting my men. And I used to think, wow, this guy's a pretty brave guy. And then I found out he's a fraud. He never was in Vietnam. And he stopped campaigning because there was no way you could win. No way. And because it's Connecticut, where, I guess, only a Democrat, can you believe this? That's why Connecticut's such a mess right now. Only a Democrat wins. You got to see it's a mess. General Electric just moved out. That doesn't help. But Da Nang Dick. And then I see him yesterday talking about a man who's #1 at Yale, has like this perfect record. the most incredible record. One of the reasons I picked him, he's like a perfect person. And Da Nang Dick, who said he was a great war hero, and he never saw the country. This wasn't like saying, hey, I was in the army. This is a guy that said he was charging up Da Nang province, right? Da Nang province. He's up that hill and he's taking bullets left and right. And he never saw the place. He was in the reserves though, remember that. And he said, I demand honesty. This is true, exact words. I demand honesty, integrity, and I demand that there's no lying going on. And I'm saying, wait a minute, that's the guy that lied about in the history of our country, if you look at it, he lied. And this is one of the people. How bad? And then you have the Feinstein, and you have all the others, and you look at what's going on. You don't want those people in office, folks. You've got to have great republic. And compare that with what you've seen with John Cornyn, who asked that great question to Diane and got her a little off base, like, you know, John Cornyn of Texas, and Lindsey Graham, who did such a great job. Did a great job. How good was Lindsey? How good was Lindsey? And you know what? He was speaking from the heart. He was speaking. And by the way, took a week, but that extra week was a great thing because it showed no corroboration, no nothing. No, by the way, no nothing. How good was Senator Susan Collins yesterday? Really? Great. And Chuck Grassley, I'll tell you what, Chuck was great. He's got to be very happy with what we did on trade, right? Chuck from Iowa, great state. And Mitch McConnell, how good? How good? He was tough and smart. He was great. He worked hard. And we got ourselves the finest legal mind, one of the finest human beings. And again, what his family took, the horror that they had to endure by these people like Blumenthal and Cory Booker, who was a disaster as the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. What they had to take was a disgrace. The only reason to vote Democrat is if you're tired of winning, right? Tired of winning. We want to win, win, win. We never get tired of it. After years of rebuilding other nations, we are finally rebuilding our nation. You see what's happening. And I just left the United Nations last week. And I can tell you, and everybody else can tell you, and even the fake news can tell you, America is respected again. To create more jobs and rising wages, Republicans passed the biggest package of tax cuts and reforms in American history by far. We also passed Veterans' Choice, 44 years, giving our veterans the right to see a private doctor. And we paid for it. So they don't have to wait online for 25 days, 38 days, 14 days, 6 days. They go out and they see a private doctor. They get themselves a good doctor. We pay the bill. It's frankly so simple, but it took 44 years to get it done. We got it done. I'm good at getting things. I'm good at getting things. And we also passed, this is 45 years, the VA accountability law to ensure anyone who mistreats our veterans will be held accountable. You are fired. Get out.
Good.
And we've secured a record $700 billion, and the next year, $716 billion to rebuild our military and to give our brave warriors their largest pay raise in almost a decade.
Good.
The Pentagon is now working to create the sixth branch of the American Armed Forces, the Space Force.
Right.
Very serious stuff. And it's happening quickly. It's very serious. That's where it's at. You know, you have to know where it's at. Doesn't sound right, but it's right. That's where it's at. Both defense and offense, that's where it's at. I withdrew the United States from the horrible, one-sided Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah.
You know, before I became president, I looked at what was happening with Iran. They were taking over the Middle East. They were taking Syria. They were taking Yemen. They were going into Iraq. They were taking everything. Now, they just want to make it. They just want to say they have riots in every city. Since I took over that operation, that horrible, horrible deal, that was, I think of it, the previous administration gave Iran $150 billion. And even crazier, they gave them $1.8 billion in cash. Cash. Airplanes full of cash. In fact, I got in. I said, does the President of the United States actually have the power to give away $1.8 billion in cash? You know what the answer is? It's actually no. They don't. What they did there is a disgrace. They gave them 1.8 in order to have a terrible deal. Well, that was a hostage. They paid $1.8 billion. They paid $1.8 billion for hostages. Can you imagine? And we got our hostages back from North Korea. Nothing. Zero. And we have a good relationship. And who knows what happens, but I think good things happen. No more missile testing, no more rocket testing, no more nuclear testing. We got the remains of our great, great heroes from 75 years ago back. And they keep coming back. And we got our hostages back. And good things are happening over there. You know what I always say? It's deals. Just before we signed the deal with Canada and Mexico, great deal. I said, who knows? I never like to say, what could you say? It's a deal. Who knows? I like to do it. It takes all the pressure off. Who knows? With North Korea, who knows? But I think we're doing very well, okay? The fake news says, why aren't you going faster? I said, listen, I just got back 3 months ago, right? I was there with Kim Jong-un. I was there 3 months ago. Chairman Kim. They say, why aren't you going faster? I said, what have people done for 75 years? 75. This is 3 months. And one of the anchors said, why has the president given away so much? And I said, what have I given? I haven't given anything. We got our hostages back for nothing, out of respect. Right. We got our remains back. We got the testing all stopped, including the nuclear testing. I said, tell me, what have we given? Well, you agreed to meet. Oh, that doesn't cost me very much. I agreed to meet. I like to meet. I like to meet. What the hell do we lose by meeting? I asked the previous administration. Now that's what I gave away. I agreed to meet. Can you believe it? These people are sick. I agreed to meet. Can you imagine how well we'd do if we actually had fair press? Can you imagine? No, can you imagine? instead of fake news. I agreed to meet. I'm sorry I agreed to meet. And then they said, right? You know, the rhetoric was extremely tough that first couple of months. And President Obama said, at my meeting with him, he said, the biggest problem we have by far is North Korea. They would have gone to war. Millions and millions of people would have been killed. Millions of people. And I said to somebody in their administration, have you ever talked? Have you ever agreed to meet? Have you ever, like, let's sit down and talk? Well, we haven't thought about, oh, I see, you go to war, you're not going to talk? We'll beat anybody. What we have now coming in, I'm telling you, it's the greatest power we've ever had, the greatest power in the world. You know why I have that? Because I don't want to use it. And when you have it, nobody's going to mess with us, okay? Nobody. I don't want to use it. Greatest power in the world. 716 billion, greatest power in the world. But we're doing great. And we have recognized the capital of Israel and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. That's the other story out there. That's the other story we tell. That's a big one. That's a big, big story. You know why? Because other presidents all said they're going to do it. Many, many presidents. We're going to do it, we're going to do it. Then the pressure goes on them and they don't do it. And I see why. I don't blame them. Every leader called me up. Don't do it, please don't do it, don't do it. You know the story. I've refused to take their phone calls. I said, tell them I'll call them back on Thursday. Next week. And I'm signing like on Wednesday. Tell them I'm calling them back on Thursday. I look forward to speaking to them. Then I sign the deal, announce the deal. Then I call them back. Yeah, hi, how you doing? What's up? Well, we wanted to talk to you about Israel, but it's a little late. And the embassy, which was going to cost over $1 billion, we built it for about $400,000, right? You know. And the billion would have taken probably 20 years before you ever got the building. And we took a piece of land that we owned, already owned. And it had a building on it. Okay, building. We fixed the building up a little bit. We took the big space in the corner. We used even Jerusalem stone, which is a very expensive Europe builder. Jerusalem stone is beautiful. How nice is that? And you know, Jerusalem stone in Jerusalem sounds about right. And we got it for the right price. And we built it for less than $500,000. Think of it. And we opened it. It's open now. We have our embassy. So we saved $1 billion in 20 years. And we have our embassy. We could do that with hundreds of things. For years you watched as your leaders apologized for America. And now you have a president who is standing up for America. We're standing up for your values. We're standing up for Kansas, and we're standing proudly. We are standing proudly for our great national anthem, right? And I just helped Canada and the NFL make a deal that they've been trying to make for years. Can you believe it? Canada was taking advantage of the NFL. The NFL couldn't get it done. It took me about 2 seconds because it's peanuts. It's a lot of money, but it's not compared to corn and crops and dairy and milk and cars and steel and everything else. It's peanuts. I say, you got to take care of it, not right, because I want to help American companies. It took me like 2 minutes, and we got it done. And I got a call from the commissioner of the NFL, and I thought he was calling me to ask me to stop haunting them about standing for the American flag and for our nation. And he didn't. He called me to thank me. He said, the previous administration could not get it done, and you got it done. We didn't even know you were trying to do it. So now they'll have a lot more money to give to their players, and their players will still hate me, but that's okay. Stand for our anthem, just as long as they stand. Just as long as they stand for our flag and our anthem, I don't care how they feel about it. But to continue our incredible momentum, You have to get your friends, your family, your neighbors, your co-workers, and get out and vote Republican. We need more people in D.C. We don't have enough. Vote to send Chris Kobach to the governor's mansion and vote to send Steve Watkins to Congress. We'll always vote for Trump. A vote for Republicans is a vote for lower taxes, less regulation, and more products made right here in the USA. Finally. We want it made here. It's a vote to respect our borders, respect our Constitution, and respect the heroes of law enforcement. And that's what they are. They're our heroes. And a vote for Republicans is a vote to reject the Democrat politics of anger and division and destruction, and to reclaim America's true heritage and righteous destiny. We're losing that with these crazy loco people. To everyone in this room tonight, that's a lot of people, to every citizen watching across our land, this is your time to choose. It's a time to choose whether we turn backward to the failure and frustration of the past, or whether we continue forward into a future of American greatness. It's not up to the media. It's not up to the pundits. It's up to you to decide your fate. And remember this. What happened in 2016 and what's happening even more so now, I believe, because I produced, and people see I produced. One of them said he made a lot of promises and he actually produced more than he made promises. I mean, think of it. I did. You have the power with your vote to defend your family, your community, your country, and everything we hold sacred and righteous and true. Loyal citizens like you help build this country, and together we are taking back our country, returning power to everyday great American patriots. The state of Kansas was settled by tough pioneer men and strong women who defied danger and braved the wilderness to build a beautiful life on the plains. Beautiful. Strong women. I'm sorry, fellas. Stronger than the men. I'm sorry, fellas. Strong. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot of luxury. But they all had one thing in common. They loved their families. They loved their country. And they loved their God. These courageous patriots did not shed their blood, sweat, and tears so that we could sit at home while others tried to erase their legacy and destroy our proud and great American heritage. For the sake of our freedom and for the sake of our children, we are going to work, we are going to fight, and we are going to win. We will not bend. We will not break. We will never give in. We will never give up. We will never back down. We will never surrender. And we will always fight on to victory. Because we are American and our hearts bleed red, white, and blue. We are people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together, we will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Kansas. Thank you. Thank you.
I always love it. All right, that is President Trump just wrapping up a rally in Topeka, Kansas. A really very, very positive speech on an incredible day where we witnessed history with an associate justice being confirmed and sworn in to the United States Supreme Court. It's the culmination of one of the most contentious Supreme Court hearings that we've ever seen in American history. And this president, of course, in Topeka, Kansas, talking about all of the great things that have been done. A huge day for him, a huge day for the Republican Party as he continues to march through the country to get people to support the candidates in their states just prior to the midterm. A fired up President Trump, clearly doing what he does best, just wrapping up that rally speech in Topeka, Kansas. Well, we have a political panel here tonight. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp, an NRA TV contributor, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino, to break it all down tonight. All right, guys, first of all, I just want to get your take on the huge day that the president had.
I want to stop right there and make my own personal comments to my own viewers. First of all, Topeka was already growing quite well whenever I was out there. Whenever I was out there in 2009. And the reason why I know this is because in 2009 is whenever my father passed away. And I was working up there for two brothers in KC, Missouri. And KC, Missouri from Topeka, Kansas isn't but maybe, I don't know, an hour at the very most. You got the river. I think it's the Missouri River, if I'm not mistaken, that separates them. But I really didn't get to become that solely acquainted with the people in Topeka, Kansas. But I did notice, you see the body of, I don't know if that's even the same place or not. I did get to understand that in certain parts of their city, their economy was growing, but in other parts of their city, it was very, very stagnant and not doing so well. Keep in mind that anytime you cross over the mighty Mississippi, going over into the western states, those states are a lot younger than what these states are over here, east of the mighty Mississippi. A matter of fact, St. Louis is about 90 years, 60 to 90 years older than Kansas City, even though they're both in the same state. One is on the east side, the other is on the west side. The east side of the state, St. Louis, is right beside the mighty Mississippi, because that was where the exchange of correspondence, their trading route, was predominant. That's the reason why that St. Louis growed. I think what the president was talking about was the Cheatham Trail, the old Cheatham Trail coming up through Texas and coming up through parts of Oklahoma on up into Topeka, Kansas, pertaining to the women being tough during that era. And they really, really was. Some extreme, hardcore, self-willed, good, loving, hard-working people. They really was. But I want to make a comment to my viewers now that now that the circus has ended pertaining to the judge and the professor, the doctor. I've heard her called both. I've heard her called professor, and I've also heard her called doctor. There's a reason why that I'm documenting these programs. And the reason why is not just to be able to voice my opinion about certain things that our chief and commander says and does, and there's no doubt he's feeling his Wheaties tonight. He's beating his chest like an ape, which that's okay. He deserves it towards bragging, having the bragging rights, because the very person that he elected did in fact become the Supreme Court in the Supreme Court justice system. I don't think it done it all on its own. I think it took the whole body to finally come up with a decision in which, I've heard certain senators talk about the doctor's testimony and about the narrowest to the truth that I can come up with is that something did happen to Dr. Ford. We don't know, and I don't even think she knows, pertaining to when, where, or who, which are very, very important facts. And as the straw that broke the camel's back in her speech, I done forgot her name now. I'm not a politician, and I don't find politics to me to be all that important. So I don't remember names like I should pertaining to the political parties. Forgive me for that. But in her speech, in her dialogue, she made reference that the things that Dr. Ford or Professor Ford was talking about deemed in the credibility character towards it being more non-believable than it was believable. Not that she didn't have something occur in her life, but did it occur with that particular person that they was talking about pertaining to the judge. I have been micromanaging this, not for the sake of Dennis, not for the sake of Russia, not for the sake of England or the UN, but for the sake of my people. If you'll put your thinking caps on, just about the time that all that big hullabaloo broke loose pertaining to whether or not they found this person to be worthy, fit was the word that they used, towards standing in the Supreme Court, was just about the time whenever somebody in the White House had done already spilt the beans towards reporting to the New York Times about how that they felt like Donald Trump was unfit himself. And we're talking about somebody in the senior department in his administration, which leans more towards that person being an actual traitor. Treason. Did somebody cover that up to get the American people off focused to the point that they created this mirage, that they created this what word am I looking for? This deception, to where we all took our minds off of what was actually going on in the White House pertaining to this individual that leaked this information to the New York Times, and to this day I still don't know that they have ever found out who that individual was or is. Now there has to be some sort of a trail, because I guarantee you, if I put something on my little tattletale device that I call not just a smartphone, but a smart aleck phone, but if I put something on there that is derogatory or threatening, and it doesn't matter if I send it to City Hall, it doesn't matter if I send it to a judge, it doesn't matter if I send it to my local congressman, or to my state representative, or to my district representative, or I send it to the governor, the lieutenant governor, or the attorney general of the state, or somebody pertaining to up in the White House, there will be some sort of a tracking, I almost said device, there will be some sort of a tracking evidence of who sent that material to the New York Times. Now, granted, whoever sent it could have possibly went out and purchased a cheap phone, one of those throwaway phones. They could have changed their identity. That's always a possibility. But even at that, there'll still be some sort of a serial number that will go back to whoever that was that sent that out. Somehow or another, all of a sudden all that got covered up. Now, am I just imagining this? Or was there fixing to be I think they call it a debacle, to where something big was fixing to erupt in the White House? Similar to that in which what happened during the Clinton administration era, whenever they was fixing to impeach Bill Clinton for lying to the American people, and it already got passed in one position, but it was fixing to go into another, and Bill Clinton basically blackmailed all those people up there and told them, okay, y'all go ahead and do this. Y'all go ahead and do what you're going to do, because as soon as you do, I got information on this one, and that one, towards this one, sleeping with this one, and this one, who doing this one and that one. Yeah, he was fixing to open up a whole can of worms to the point that it would have caused a calamity in the White House. Is that what has just happened to prevent, by using all this stuff pertaining to this woman, Miss Ford, and the nominee of going to the Supreme Court? Because if you think about it, that just come out of nowhere. They had done already had scheduled meetings, trials. They had done already interviewed several people. It was like a tribunal deal towards making sure that everybody was in the right positions, towards being accountable. And even Mr. Donald Trump, our chief and commander, said, why did they wait to the last minute? I guarantee you, for every action is a reaction. And if you look deep into the interior fundamental motive of why that was thrown out there so suddenly, to the point that we become distracted. Instead of looking at this, now we're looking over here at this. It's kind of like a bank robber. Back during the 1800s, it was pretty well known and practiced that if you wanted to rob a bank over here, catch something on fire over here, create a distraction while all your police force and everybody else is trying to put this fire out over here. Walk over here and rob the bank. A diversion was the word that I was looking for a while ago. I think that a diversion was created to take our minds off of what was fixing to occur up at the White House pertaining to somebody that had leaked out information about our chief and commander that was fixing to be nailed to the cross. And rather than create this atmosphere of nothing but destruction, they diverted and created this. This is just my opinion now. They created this diversion so that we took our eyes off of this and started focusing on this. That's the reason why I told my viewers from the get-go, this is nothing more than a distraction tactic. Because if the truth be known, after spending all these hours, all this time, all this money, all these people's high tempers, I don't know how many people got arrested pertaining to the protesters. After spending all this energy, we went right back to square one, which is go ahead and let the man sit in the Supreme Court justice system. If you added up all the money that got spent in a 3-week period, it would probably be over, and I'm trying to be conservative, it would probably have been over $20 million that got spent. Shuffling around paperwork, people has to be paid, regardless of what news agency. An FBI investigation was opened. It was just a big diversion. Because somebody that's going to bring out a story of 36 years ago and can't remember the day and can't remember the place and really can't even remember the person. The person was even iffy. There was so many holes in that. Why did that take up and consume so much of our time and so much of our energy whenever we should have been focused upon other great matters, regardless whether it's our veterans, our senior citizens, our third world country affairs? Who's playing who here? There's no doubt the enemy is not at the gate. The fox is in the chicken coop. There's no doubt that the swamp needs to be drained. But in order to drain the swamp, starting in county positions, moving up into the state positions, and then the federal positions, it would cause such of a uproar, it would absolutely collapse itself upon itself. It's kind of like whenever we had a heated debate, I think it was during the time that young Bush was in power, pertaining to the drugs. And there's no doubt that Mexico is a weak economy, and there's no doubt that Mexico has not made investments here in the United States like other countries. They're still stronger than other countries. They're not on the very bottom, but they're not up on top neither. It was talk because of the illegal immigrants back then, and because of the drug war, of rounding all of them up that was illegal and sending them across the Rio Grande. It was talk in the great state of Texas that if they was to have done that, that it would have literally collapsed its economy upon itself, because there were so many people, and probably still is, working in Texas without proper documentation. The problem is too severe, is the point that I'm trying to make. It's just like draining the swamp up there in the White House and in other departments and in other agencies. There's too much corruption. And if you really was to get a hold of it in the form that it needed to be gotten a hold of, it would collapse the system. You're not just talking about collapsing one state. You're talking about collapsing the whole enchilada called the government of the United States. I'm still interested in who leaked what out to the New York Times. Has it been looked at? Has it been resolved? And the person that done it, was they punished? And in what severity of punishment did they get? Because I'm like Donald Trump. Anybody that was working that close in his administration never should have ever leaked out any type of information like that to any media. And if their feelings was that strong that they was willing to stick their necks out like that, they probably never should have been working for the administration to begin with. You got people that are in these high-ranking positions, probably making $500,000 a year, in addition to all their perks and all the other side-winding payoffs and rip-offs that they get. And this is the very thing that the American people did not put those people in power to watch them grow in power to become. It's kind of like David and I. We talked about it with Mr. Tommy Moore, the local judge here in Weakley County. I knew Mr. Moore just about the time that he stepped out of the legal process of practicing law towards being an attorney, towards becoming a judge. And I have watched this person grow in power, going up the steps, becoming more and more powerfuler, because the more money that you poke back and the more businesses that you can have a part of And the more wealth that you can spread here and spread there, the more powerful that you become. You become almost invincible to the point that you're above the law. I got news for Mr. Moore, Mr. Tommy Moore. Mr. Tommy Moore and certain individuals in either Weakley County or in Obion County is not above the law. They may own a great deal of real estate or marketing strategies in either county, but they don't own us. They don't own our self-will. They don't own our dignity. They don't own towards tying our tongues and not revealing the truth in the Me Too movement. Thank God for those little telephones that somebody decided to make called a smart aleck phone. Thank God we're living in 2018 in the 21st century, because if I was solely relying upon the Neal family in Kenton, Tennessee, of getting in behind the Windmill Ministries missions and exposing my story, I would have been waiting till hell froze over. If I would have been waiting for the majority of the senior pillars of Kenton, Tennessee to have come forth and said, you know what? You're right. You was done wrong in 1983. It branded you. You never should have been treated that way. I would have been waiting till hell froze over. The same difference within Weakley County of various law enforcement agencies that has been a part of this conspiracy. And don't say that it's not still going on, because as recently as the last little more than 72 hours ago, 3 days ago, I almost wound up either being roughed up and going to jail, or at least just going to jail simply for stopping in the road and telling somebody something that I felt like that maybe I should tell, because they was out by the mailbox walking around, and I rolled my window down and I blurted out something about an individual being sick in the hospital. The next thing you know, there's all kinds of whistles and bells going off. You talk about a group of people that's scrutinizing me to the point that if I so much as step on a damn wooden nickel, oh, Juby's going to jail. Away with him! Away with him! We don't want to hear what he's got to say. I got news for Mr. Coble. I tried to be friends with Mr. Coble, the cop in Cydonia. But I knew that Mr. Coble was trying to play me, especially whenever I stood in front of the Baptist church after we had a little meal up there, and I asked him about the episode that continually kept happening out here. Why? 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 You know what his answer was? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you knew. Yeah, you knew. You knew exactly what was going on. Just like the majority of the senior citizens and the adult society around here. They knew what was going on. They was going to stick it in old Dennis and old David's rear end just as deep as they could. That way we could shove him back in a corner somewhere, and we never, ever had to hear from none of them again. Why? Because a mistake had been made. They should have listened to the messenger. Though they didn't like the message, they should have backed the man of God during the hour that the man of God was coming forth. And they never did. Never did. They was saying that I was cuckoo. Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. And the whole time, they was the ones that was fruity. They was the ones that didn't have the audacity to read the Bible and to interpret it face value. the way that it should have been interpreted. Why in the world would have a God that loves his people pre-warned his people to the 7 churches in the first 4 chapters of Revelations to be thy faithful unto death, and he that shall overcometh will not be hurt of the second death, and that Satan would throw some of us into prison to be thy faithful unto death? If he wasn't pre-warning us of these things that was going to occur, why would he have even had John the Revelator even put it in the book of Revelations if it wasn't going to occur? These people have been in denial. These people are bogus. These people are blasphemers that walk around talking the talk, but in reality, they're not walking the walk. And whenever I say walking the walk, I'm just not talking about trying to live a life of righteousness towards being sinless. I'm talking about those that proclaim that they're willing to die for the Word of God the same way that Christ was willing to die for us. They all walk around with guns. They're all scared of their own shadows. They're all schizophrenics living in a world that don't even exist. But yet now they want to point their finger at me and tell me that I'm insane. I'm cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. I think you better reevaluate your whole lives. All of them around here. You played a part in allowing for this to get out of control the way that it has. $21 trillion, drugs, abortions, mental retardation, deformation pertaining to children being born, divorces, $21 trillion in debt, federal, state, local jails, nothing but a evolving door. And I'm the one that's crazy? A little more than 72 hours ago, I come within that close, a centimeter of going to jail, going through this hullabaloo. It's pretty obvious that I am going to have to shake the dust off of my feet and get the hell out of here. Just like the Bible teaches and tells us that if they won't receive you, if they won't read, or if they won't read to what you are saying to them. And once more, where's my supporters? Once more, the people that violated this family and violated this ministry, have I received any type of formal or informal apology from any of them? You know, I got a group of people up here in Martin, Tennessee. Just because I simply used a word, one word, tried to brand me towards me being a homegrown terrorist. Like I was another David Koresh or another Timothy McVeigh or Nichols. I've seen wickedness. I have. I've been around some very, very cruel people in different areas in my life that I'm not proud to say that I was a part of, or that I subsequently, indirectly watched occurrences happen, regardless whether it was occurrences in couples pertaining to wife and husband, or pertaining to business, if you want to call it business association, deals going bad out in the underground. I've seen some things that I'm not proud of. But to see what the open churches, the people that we call the professional people, the suit and tie people, The people that's got diplomas hanging on their walls, degrees, went to Bible colleges to be in the positions that they're in, and to think that they was all part of trying to destroy, to undermine the very will of the Heavenly Father. They done the same thing with Moses. They done the same thing with other prophets of God that was called of God to do a certain particular task or to bring forth a certain particular message pertaining to them being a messenger. And they done it, of course, to the leader, the main leader, the Lord Jesus Christ. So why would I have not received this type of resistance or this type of adversity? I just wouldn't have thought that it would have been with the people that I was raised up with, that I thought that I could trust, that I thought that had some sort of decency about themselves, because they did put on a nice shirt and a nice blouse. They was supposed to have been part of the civilized society. I thought. Come to find out, they was more rootless than the rootless. You know, there's an old saying, you keep your friends close, you keep your enemies even closer. You don't have to worry about a murderer, a bank robber, a thief, a whore, a hoodlum. You don't have to worry about those that are not disguised, because they've already displayed their colors openly towards who they are and what they are. And because of it, whenever you identify them, whenever you see them, it's like, oh, stay away from that person. Oh, stay away from that person. Oh, if you feed them, be sure you feed them with a long spoon. Keep them on a short leash. It's the people that you thought you could trust. Your lawyers, your bankers, your business associates, your teachers, your principals, your professors, your preachers, your ministers, all these people that's supposed to be working up here, that's supposed to be the experts. Listen to me. They're all supposed to be the experts, right? That's the reason why they got all this education. They spent all this money. Some of them spent $500,000 or better on their education. Probably some of them actually spent $1 million. What they have become is legalized extortionists. And because of it, they have put the working class and the poor class, our lives, in peril. Now it's got to the point, nobody trusts nobody. You don't know who's out to get you, who's out to wrong you. Just the other day, I was up at the courthouse. An individual walks out because his wife and him were sharing the same bank account. And for somehow, they wound up getting overdraft $30. $30. I'm sure the individual probably had a kid or two. Money's tied everywhere. I asked him, I said, what'd that wind up costing you? About $65, $70? He said, Lord, no. That's what it used to be about 25, 30 years ago. That if you wrote a bad check, if you overdrawed even $1, it was going to wind up costing you $60. Today, not only do you need to double that, but you need to triple that. That $30 check cost him $170 because of the fines. And then he was forced, he told me, to have to go to a class to be able to figure out how to write his checkbook correctly. I said, yeah, and I bet you that ain't free neither. He said, no, sir. That's another $70. So whenever you're talking about 140 plus 70, that's $210 extra, because somebody misdiagnosed their checkbook and wrote out a check for $30. The system, as Donald Trump started out preaching about 2 years ago, is in fact corrupt. The system is tainted. The system is rigged to where only the powerful of the powerful remain powerful. And people like us, we're not supposed to never get on top. They have rigged the system to the point that the working class, oh yeah, people may have a little bit of extra 401k. The jobs is picked up a little bit. But you take the state of Tennessee, as far as I know, the minimum wage is still the same. Even David, before he died, told me, with him being a factory worker, that he was making at least $4 to $5 less in 2016, up into the year he died, 2017, that he was making between $4 and $5 an hour less, doing the exact same thing, working on the exact same assembly line today as what he was making 8, 10, 12 years before that. The system hadn't been fixed. It may be fixing itself in some degree for some people that has being at the right place at the right time, working for the right people. But by and large, around here, in this area, in the Northwest Tennessee area, no way. Especially whenever, in order for them to get a job, they got to go down here at a job agency for them to find them a job, and then you got to pay them an extra $1 or $2 an hour for 6 months because they found you a job. Is that not rigged? Just like at the courthouse. If you go up there to pay them with a debit card, I don't know how it is in all the other counties. I can only talk about this one, because this one is the one that I deal with on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. But if I go up to the courthouse to purchase a license plate, and I do not have cold cash in my pocket to pay, what is it, 67, 72 something dollars for that plate, if I pull out an ATM or a debit card, they're going to deduct 3% off of some sort of handling charges. Who else does that? Does Walmart do that? Does JCPenney do that? Does Shell? Does Exxon? Does these restaurants do that? No. There's a gimmick here in this county. Whoever is doing that is taking advantage of even the poorest of the poor. And these people can sleep good at night. These people call themselves professionals. Oh, they're professionals, all right. You can bet your bottom dollar they are professional, legalized extortionists. From the bankers, to the lawyers, to the politicians, to the preachers. That pretty well covers it. And then, of course, whenever you look over into your medical arena side, pertaining to your doctors, pertaining to your hospitals, and pertaining to your clinics, it even gets even dirtier. The rigging even becomes even more rigged. The whole thing's out of focus. And like I said a while ago, this Judge Kavanaugh thing was nothing more than a big distraction of what is really going on up in the White House. There's no doubt the system needs to be rebuilt. There's no doubt the swamp needs to be drained. But how are you going to do this without there being major ramifications in doing it? Other than that, the innocent are still going to be banged up on. They're still going to be taken advantage of. They're still not going to be paid efficiently and effectively like they ought to be. They're still, if they make one little itty bitty mistake, like a $30 check, it's going to cost them another $210. In addition to that, person's going to have to probably take off from work. That'll be another $100. And these people can sleep good at night that created that? I guarantee you, whenever the stock market done what it done in 2008 pertaining to the bubble burst, whenever all the real estate kind of sucked in, remember whenever gasoline wound up going to $4, $5, $6 a gallon in some states? Remember people driving on the interstate, rather than driving 75 and 80, they backed her down to 50 and 55 to try to maintain and save gas. They was waking up earlier. They was leaving 30 minutes ahead so that they could maintain, because all their money was going into their tanks. I guarantee you, the mayors, the governors, the lieutenant governors, the sheriffs, anybody associated with the system never got hurt one itty bitty iota. None of them. Construction workers lost their rear ends to the point that they was losing their very shirts on their backs. School teachers, still to this day, are not getting paid what they ought to be getting paid. Our roads is still damaged and falling apart because the very people that turned this into a cesspool are still in office, sucking the system even more, and the people continue to keep voting them very same people in power again and again and again. When is the American people going to wake up? Probably after it's too late. Like it was in 1929 when people started jumping out of windows. And the whole time, old Juby has been trying to lead them in the right direction and wake them up and get them to smell the very stuff that they've been walking in for the past 25 or 30 years, just like old David, my brother. David hated this place. He hated their work ethics. He hated how that they had screwed the working class people over. And he for darn sure hated how that they manipulated the ministry that God had given me to orchestrate, how that they had tromped it, romped it, and almost completely destroyed it by destroying the founder of it. Come close. Come close to completely, totally annihilating an innocent person's life. So if they've done it to me, how many others out there? How many more victims have been victimized by the United States government? How many other victims out there that has been victimized by other governments of these oligarchies, or oligarchs, that has tried to rule them and dominate them either through fear or drugs or entertainment. Keep in mind, Rome done the same thing. Rome thought that they could control the masses this way by keeping them uneducated, keeping them entertained, until it all started falling apart. And people started waking up, and people started realizing what was going on. And by that time, the richest and the wealthiest of the wealthy, that was still fat, full, and full of envy, oh, they went down. They went down. But they went down with all the innocent lives that they took with them. And that's basically where we're at right now. I wonder what happened to the person in the White House that leaked that to the New York Times within a day or two right before this I don't even know what I know there has to be a proper word for it of what they done here. I don't think it was just a pure mere coincidence that come up. I really don't. It may have been some underhand deal by the Democrats towards trying to cause a discursion, but I think it was created for a reason. Like I said, I'm recording this. I'm watching this because my people are being hurt. And I'm talking about little children that no longer has a future other than doing drugs, screwing their neighbor's daughter, or getting out here riding around in a four-wheeler out in the mud towards boozing it up. That's the future. That's the future that people like Tommy Moore and others, law enforcement agencies, wanted their very people to deal with. And to think that the people in Weakley County didn't even respect enough to put a monument up for an airplane that fell out of the sky pertaining to World War II, to think that the people that supposedly christened Dresden, Tennessee, drunk all the booze before they broke the bottle, couldn't even sacrifice what was in the bottle? What kind of freaking people is this over here anyway? I'm going to tell you what kind of people it is. Some of the most worthless, sorriest son of a you-know-what that you've ever laid your eyes on. That's what kind of people it is. They're breeding. And it's a clique. It's a clique. I guarantee you. A Coble guy up here, he's got that little tin plate on his chest. Got all this equipment. Protect himself. Guns. Mace. Stingers. Got him in a nice little car he can drive around. Like Barney Fife. He's in that clique. If something occurs in his life or in his family's life, people like Mike Wilson and Tommy Moore and state prosecutor and Tommy Thomas, man, they're going to be right there like Johnny on the spot. We're going to take care of this guy. But the Jackson family out here and the rest of these families out here can get screwed. They pick and choose who they're going to protect and who they're going to take care of and who they're not. And I found them out whenever I come back here in 2014 that they're some of the most sorriest people in the world, as far as I'm concerned, that live in this radius called Northwest Tennessee. And I'm pretty sure you got your thugs, you got your oligarchs down in Memphis, Tennessee, all them people that got on all them drugs Them drugs didn't just fall out of the sky. Kind of like my dad used to always say, son, money don't grow on trees. Trees does not grow money. Trees does not grow meth. Trees does not grow heroin. Trees does not grow Oxycontins. Trees does not grow Colombian bud marijuana leaves. They're coming from somewhere. And the preachers that was involved in this. The Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. He who was given little was beaten with few stripes. But he who was given much will be beaten with many stripes, Mr. Neil. And all these other so-called preachers, Brother Thomas up here, some of them that actually listen to the 9 tapes, the judicial system, the churches, you got it coming. If not in this lifetime, you can bet your last bottom dollar in the lifetime to come, you'll get it. You'll get it. Because all this injustfulness that has occurred, not just in the Jackson life, pertaining to how that unruly father attacked his own family and nobody around here give a shit. But all these people that have suffered with all these jobs working for peanuts, all these people that has been subsequently hooked on drugs, even my own son, at the age of 17, got on meth and went absolutely freaking bonkers, went crazy. I wonder who it was that gave him that. I think it had something to do with a motorcycle gang up in Kentucky. May have been somebody like Hell's Angels that basically are right there with the judges and the attorneys and the prosecuting attorneys. The wicked breeds wickedness. The swamp needs draining. Something occurred in the White House to the point that we're not going to stay focused on this. We need to strike a match and catch this on fire where everybody will look at that and maybe they'll forget about this. Something is going on in the White House. And I believe, or I hope, that we have a chief and commander that wants to do something about it, but I really don't think that he can. Because if he really took a bite out of it the way that it needed to be bitten out of, it'd probably ruin all of us. That's how bad the corruption is over here in America. From your lawyers on down. On down. They don't call a politician for no reason. It's called a politic. A tick is what drains something out. These people are looking for a free handout. They're panhandlers. They're the same thing if you went down to St. Augustine on Johnson Street, and you had somebody out there that was beating on a drum. Hoping that somebody would have sympathy for them and they would drop $0.02 in their head. Your lawyers, your preachers, your politicians, they're not providing a service. At least the doctors are at least trying to provide a service, even though the service is extremely high. But whenever you have people that we're paying for their education, we're paying for their cars, we're paying for their bank accounts, We're paying for the rings on their fingers. We're paying for their vacation homes. We're paying for their extra homes. We're paying for all this other stuff. And then we have these politicians that goes into power, and they're worth this amount of money. And whenever they come out, they're worth this amount of money. It's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that they're panhandling off of the people. And the people are so blind that they're letting it happen. They're allowing for it to happen. They just got through voting in another, the same sheriff that's been in power up here for 34 years. How can you stay in power for even 2 terms, much less 3, if you're really going in and cleaning up the countryside? You're getting rid of the corruption. I'm going to tell you how. You got them all paid off. They're all getting what they want. You got colonies everywhere. You got a clique. That's what I've walked into. I've walked into not necessarily a Ku Klux Klan, but this Klan is more devious than the Ku Klux Klan ever thought about. Oh, they'll still ruin your life. Don't think for a second that they won't. They'll ruin it with temptation, frustration, assassination. They'll assassinate your character. They'll do this, do that, do that. And some of them will even go so far as actually even assassinating you. In other words, your vehicle was down here on the river somewhere on fire. And you're in it. And somebody done it to burn all the evidence up. They didn't want me speaking in Dresden. They didn't want me speaking in Humphreys County up at the courthouse, Waverly. I go to Sharon to get under a tree to seek shelter from the sun, and in less than 2 minutes, I'm literally being talked down to like a second and third class citizen, like if I was a hardcore, rootless lawbreaker, and all I done was park under a tree, gonna do some work on my computer, on my little smart aleck phone, and Juby almost gets the hell beat out of him by a cop and goes to jail. They're squirming. They're not only squirming, Mr. President, down here on this end, but they're squirming up there on your end. Keep the good work up. Keep the good work up, because eventually, if you give them enough rope, they will hang themselves. They tried to terrorize this guy, him and his family, his wife, his children. They went through hell. They went through absolute hell over a bunch of demonic demons that was trying to literally tear this man's life apart. Tear his life apart. They done the same thing to me. Thank God for the Me Too movement. Now the next question is, how many more victims out there? It's just like that judge and the person that's talking to you right now. How many other people have been literally, mortally wounded by a bunch of demons that wanted to destroy them? And the whole time, I've been trying to help humanity. Not hurt it, but help it. And give out advisories. Warn it ahead of time that if you continue on this path, if you continue doing what you're doing, This is what you must be expecting that's going to occur. This is going to occur. This is going to occur. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. See, they didn't want that. They didn't want help from Juby. They didn't want help. They was trying to cover up their own hypocrisy. They were trying to cover up their own wicked, hardened hearts that has jeopardized all of our lives now. All of our lives. Think about it. He just didn't get this way overnight.
It was a very important moment. It was a very big turning point, as the Washington Post was actually, shockingly, they said something that was very positive, and I'm very proud of it, because we're going to have a great justice of the Supreme Court for many years, and I fought hard to make sure that he got on, and you're going to see what happens. You're going to see how great he will be and will become. I have no doubt about it at all.
All right, so coming out of this, should there be consequences, Mr. President, to those people who promoted falsehoods? When you look at someone like
You
that,
darn right it should be.
The
People should go to jail.
He was promoting when he brings out this alleged victim were so preposterous that they dissipated on their own. Should this person be held for the falsehoods, not just in terms of grievances with the Bar Association, but even beyond that?
Well, he made false accusations about me on another matter, totally false. It's a joke. When just a disgrace that they're able to do it. I'd love to see our libel laws get toughened up so you could take people and sue them.
Exactly.
But he made the same thing, totally false statements. You look at what happened, and yes, I think they should be held liable. I would say they should be held to the highest standard. You can't go around and, whether it's making up stories or making false statements about such an important position, you can't do that. You destroy somebody's life. And there were many false things that were said about a very fine man, and would have destroyed his family if this didn't happen. And it all came together in the end, and people realized it was false accusation, false statement. It was really something very interesting and actually very nice to see, because he suffered, Janine. That was really unfair. I watched that very closely, and he suffered with false statements made about him, things that never happened.
Did the Democrats make a tactical mistake that worked to Republicans' advantage, unfortunately, with Brett Kavanaugh as a sacrificial lamb, who I believe, and I'm just going to say it again, the turnaround was you in Mississippi. But did they make a tactical mistake, and is their anger going to carry them to the midterms in a positive way?
Well, I think they overplayed their hand. I think they were very dishonest with the leak and other things that they did. Even look at the lawyers representing certain people. They're right out of the Democrat playbook. They've represented others that are Democrats. That's what they do. How did they end up with all these lawyers that are always the same ones? And I won't even go into names, but I think they overplayed their hand. And I can tell you that the enthusiasm and the love and the feeling in the Republican Party right now is higher than I've ever seen it. And you see polls that are going up like rocket ships, races that are going to be won by margins on races, frankly, that the Republicans wouldn't have won. And now they're leading, and they're just better.
Vote them out. Get them out of there.
Even more so that we can do things that they will never do. They're going to open borders, and crime is going to pour in. We want to have no crime. We want to have borders where you come into the country legally.
Right.
You come in through a legal process. And so many things. The enthusiasm for the Republican Party is the strongest I've ever seen it, Janine. And it happened all over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
The panel is next, and
In other words, everything that the enemy is trying to do is backfiring on them. Once more, that was my prediction whenever Donald Trump became president, that God was going to bless his endeavors and his administration. And I truly believe that his interest is at heart pertaining to wanting to drain the system. I just think that it's so big and so humongous that the people that need to go to jail will never go to jail. That has ripped off the American people and ripped off the system. We didn't become $21 trillion in debt over good behavior. This has occurred because of bad behavior. There's people that need to be held accountable. There's people that need to go to jail for allowing for this to get out of hand the way that it has. Once more, good luck to all of us. Good luck. Because if mankind isn't smart enough to clean it up, God, I promise you, will rough it up. And if he can't cure those imperfections, he'll kill those imperfections. See ya. Thanks again for listening to the Windmill Ministries missions. God bless.